I had been running on caffeine and sheer determination for the past 4 months. Late nights, early mornings, weekends spent in front of spreadsheets instead of out with friends. All for one project, an account so massive it could redefine my entire career. And finally, it was done. The client was thrilled. The presentation had been flawless, and the contract was signed. But the best part was the reward. I sat at my desk, rereading the email for what must have been the 10th time. Evelyn, you went above and beyond. Consider this a personal thank you. Enjoy the game. Attached was the confirmation: 2 Super Bowl tickets, 40-yard line, front row experience. My heart pounded. I had never been to a Super Bowl before, and as a lifelong football fan, this was beyond a dream come true. My hands shook as I printed the email, double-checking the details. The client had sent the tickets directly to my boss, Robert Fowler, the senior partner at my firm. It made sense. He handled the logistics for client gifts. I imagined the moment he'd walk into my office, flash that rare smile of approval, and hand them over with a well-earned Evelyn. Except that moment never came. Instead, 3 days later, Robert strode into my office without knocking. The smug arrogance he always carried somehow amplified. He leaned against my desk like he owned the air I breathed. "I heard you got some great news," he said. I smiled, expecting him to finally hand over the tickets. "Yeah, I really appreciate it. I put everything into that project." He nodded, almost amused. "You did, which is why I wanted to talk to you about the tickets." Something about the way he said talk sent a chill down my spine. "Right," I said carefully. Robert exhaled like he was pretending to be the good guy in this conversation. "Here's the thing, Evelyn. Clients don't really understand corporate hierarchy. They don't always know how we operate. When they gave you those tickets, well, that was really more of a gift to the firm, not just to you." I felt my stomach tighten. "No," I said slowly, keeping my voice calm. "The email explicitly said they were a personal thank you to me." He waved that away like it was a minor detail. "I get that. But in this business, it's about relationships, and sometimes we need to make strategic decisions. So I'll be taking the tickets." The world felt like it tilted on its axis. I blinked. "What? I already made arrangements?" "I'm taking a potential investor to the game. It's a smart play for the company." My heart pounded against my ribs. This couldn't be real. Months of exhausting work, countless sacrifices, and he was just taking them? "That's not fair," I said, my voice carefully measured, trying to contain the storm raging inside me. "The client gave them to me." Robert smirked like I was some naive child who didn't understand how the world worked. "You should be grateful you have a job," he said smoothly. "That's the real reward here." I swallowed hard, gripping the armrests of my chair. This wasn't just about football anymore. This was about principle, respect, a line that shouldn't be crossed. He patted my desk like I was some obedient pet. "I'm sure you understand. And hey, don't worry. You'll have plenty of other opportunities." I forced myself to breathe, to blink, to stay in control. Then I did something that surprised even me. I smiled. Not a real one. No, this was the kind of smile that had teeth hidden behind it. "Well," I said, voice perfectly smooth, "enjoy the game." He grinned, satisfied, and strolled out like he'd just done me a favor. He had no idea how much fun Monday would be. The moment Robert walked out of my office, my fake smile dropped. My hands clenched into fists beneath my desk, my nails digging into my palms. He really thought he could get away with this. I sat in silence for a moment, forcing my breathing to slow. I couldn't afford to react. Emotionally, no. If I wanted to get back at him, I had to be smart. And lucky for me, Robert had just handed me the perfect opportunity. I pulled up the original email from my client and read it again, my pulse quickening as I formed a plan. The key to taking Robert down wasn't confronting him directly. That would get me nowhere. No, the best way was to let him destroy himself. I sent a quick text to my client. Hey, just wanted to say thanks again for thinking of me with those Super Bowl tickets. It turns out they were given to someone else at my firm. Hope to catch up soon. Less than a minute later, my phone buzzed. Are you kidding me? Who took them? I smirked. Oh, this was going to be good. I played dumb. Not sure, honestly. I just know I never got them. No big deal, though. No big deal. Those were meant for you. Let me handle this. Say nothing. Bingo. I leaned back in my chair. My heart still pounding, but for an entirely different reason. Now, this was no longer a battle between me and Robert. This was a battle between Robert and the client, and I already knew who would win. I spent the rest of the day quietly gathering intel. I knew Robert wouldn't be able to keep his ego in check. He'd have to brag to someone. Sure enough, around lunchtime, I overheard him in the break room. Yeah, 40-yard line seats. Going to be insane. Taking a big fish with me. You know how it is. These kinds of deals are all about relationships. I stayed out of sight, biting back my laughter at the arrogance, the stupidity. By the time Friday rolled around, the office was buzzing. Robert was leaving early, boarding a flight that afternoon to the Super Bowl city. He walked around like a king, smug and untouchable. I caught his eye in the hallway. Big plans this weekend? I asked, keeping my voice light. He smirked. Oh, you know, just making moves. Enjoy the game, I said, and I meant it, because by the time he landed, the trap would already be in place. Saturday morning, I got an update from my client. I've arranged a meeting for Monday. Just play along. Trust me. I grinned. Oh, I trusted him. Sunday came and went, and with it, the Super Bowl. I didn't watch a single second of the game, not because I wasn't still a diehard football fan, but because I was waiting for Monday. The real show was about to begin. Robert strutted into the office at 9:07 a.m., sunglasses on, coffee in hand, radiating the smugness of a man who thought he had won. He barely acknowledged me as he passed by my desk, heading straight to his office. I waited until the 9:30 a.m. meeting invite popped up on my screen. Subject, client review, mandatory attendance, location, conference room, attendees, senior partners, Robert Fowler, client representative, Evelyn. I clicked accept. Time for the show. I walked into the glass-walled conference room and immediately felt the tension. Robert sat confidently at the head of the table, legs crossed, looking relaxed, but his confidence wavered when the client walked in. He wasn't alone. A woman followed him, someone I didn't recognize, but her presence sent an immediate shockwave through the room. The client took his seat. Robert, this is Andrea Holloway, VP of Corporate Partnerships. Andrea gave Robert a sharp nod as she sat. Robert blinked. Oh, of course. Andrea, nice to meet you. The client leaned forward, his smile polite but ice cold. Before we get into today's agenda, I have a question. Evelyn, did you enjoy the game? The room went silent. I tilted my head, feigning confusion. The game? The Super Bowl? I furrowed my brow. Oh, I didn't go. The client's expression darkened. That's strange, because I personally arranged for you to have 2 seats, right, Robert? Robert froze. A flicker of panic crossed his face, but he quickly forced a laugh. Oh, yeah. See? There was a bit of a mix-up. Evelyn wasn't able to attend. The client cut him off. So, who did... Robert shifted, uncomfortably. Uh, I... I took a client. Robert stammered. The client let the words hang in the air. Andrea cleared her throat. Robert, just so I understand, Are you saying that you took corporate seats intended as a personal gift for an employee and gave them to someone else without authorization? Robert swallowed. The client wasn't done. You know, I was really looking forward to seeing Evelyn at that game. I thought it was a fitting reward for months of hard work. But imagine my surprise when I learned she never even got them. Robert opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Andrea turned to me. Evelyn, did Robert inform you of any corporate policy that would have required you to surrender those tickets? I shook my head, keeping my voice even. No, he just told me they were his. Now the room tensed. Andrea exhaled sharply. Robert, you do realize that you not only violated internal ethical standards, but also committed what is essentially corporate theft, correct? Robert went pale. The client leaned back, shaking his head. I don't think I can continue working with someone who would undermine his own team like this. Robert jolted upright. Wait, let's just... The client turned to Andrea. I trust you'll handle the internal response. She nodded, her expression unreadable. Effective immediately, Robert knew he wasn't just in trouble, he was finished. I just sat back and enjoyed the show. Robert's silence stretched across the conference room like a noose tightening around his throat. His face, usually smug and full of arrogant confidence, was now a shade of red teetering on the edge of panic. Andrea, the VP of Corporate Partnerships, leaned forward, folding her hands on the table, her voice smooth but laced with authority. Robert, you do understand what this looks like? His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. He understood. The client exhaled, shaking his head. This isn't just about the tickets, Robert. It's about trust, about professionalism, about knowing that when I choose to work with someone, they're not going to screw over their own employees for personal gain. Robert's jaw clenched, his fingers twitched against the table. He looked around, searching for an ally, but there were none. The other senior partners, who had been silent until now, exchanged uncomfortable glances. No one wanted to be associated with this mess. I sat still, hands folded neatly in my lap. I didn't smirk. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The silence stretched until finally Andrea spoke again. Robert, did you expense anything related to this trip? He blinked. She tilted her head slightly. Did you charge the flight? The hotel? Any meals? Any transportation to the firm's account? The panic in his eyes was answer enough. The client chuckled under his breath, but there was no humor in it. You used company funds to take someone else to the Super Bowl with the tickets meant for Evelyn? Robert tried to pull himself together. He sat up straighter, cleared his throat, and forced a thin smile. Listen, I understand how this looks, but I was thinking about the firm. I was cultivating a relationship with a valuable investor. The client cut him off. What investor? Robert blinked. Excuse me? The client leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. Who exactly did you take to the game? Robert's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Andrea tapped her fingers against the table. Robert, answer the question. He hesitated, his mind scrambling for an excuse, for any way out of this hole. I already knew the truth. Robert hadn't taken an investor. He hadn't taken anyone important to the company. He'd taken his brother-in-law, a man with zero business connections, no potential deals, no reason to be at that game other than to drink overpriced beer and enjoy the best seats in the house. And Robert had expensed every penny. I could see it on his face. The realization that there was no way out. The client shook his head. Unbelievable. He turned to Andrea. I want it noted that my firm will no longer be conducting business with Robert Fowler moving forward. Robert snapped his head up. Wait, that's not... The client continued as if he hadn't spoken. If you'd like to assign a different senior partner to handle my account, I'm open to discussing that. He turned to me. Or, quite frankly, I'd prefer to deal directly with Evelyn moving forward. I managed to keep my expression neutral, but inside I was screaming, with satisfaction. Andrea nodded. Understood. She tapped a few notes into her tablet. Robert, we'll be handling this internally. I suggest you take the rest of the week off while we review the situation. Robert's face drained of all color. He opened his mouth to protest, but then he saw the expression on Andrea's face, on the client's face, on everyone's face. He was done. Finished. He stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor, and without another word, stormed out of the room, the glass doors swinging shut behind him. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, the client turned to me. His expression softened. Evelyn, I want to apologize. I should have made sure you got those tickets personally. I shook my head. You had no way of knowing. Honestly, I glanced at the door Robert had just walked through. This worked out better. He chuckled. I like the way you think. Andrea smiled, then slid a document across the table. Evelyn, since you're already the one doing most of the work on this account, I'd like to formally offer you a promotion. My breath caught. A promotion? I stared at the document in front of me. Significant salary increase, more authority, a title that put me on par with the very people who had dismissed me before. I swallowed, lifting my gaze to meet hers. Are you serious? She smiled. Absolutely. You've more than earned it. I exhaled, a slow grin spreading across my face. Then I accept. The client stood, extending a hand. Glad to hear it. And Evelyn, yes. Next time I get Super Bowl tickets, they'll be sent directly to you. I laughed, shaking his hand. Robert thought he stole my reward. Instead, he handed me everything I ever wanted, and the best part? Monday was just getting started. By the time I walked back to my desk, the entire office was buzzing. People were whispering, side-eyeing me, side-eyeing Robert's empty chair in the corner office. News traveled fast in corporate circles, and when a senior partner stormed out of a conference room looking like he had just seen a ghost, people noticed. I sat down, trying to suppress the smirk tugging at my lips, as my inbox exploded with emails. Congratulations, messages of support, even a few shocked, "What just happened?" pings from colleagues who had only caught bits and pieces of the drama. Then a text from Robert Fowler. What the hell did you do? I stared at it for a second before typing back. Me? Not sure what you mean. I thought you were making moves. I waited. No response. Of course not. I let out a slow breath, glancing at the newly signed promotion letter on my desk. I had won, but Robert wasn't done with me yet. Robert's last move arrived an hour later, an email with the subject HR meeting, immediate attendance required. I clicked it open. Evelyn, please report to HR immediately. This is a mandatory meeting. I frowned. Robert wouldn't go down without a fight. I grabbed my notebook and made my way to the HR office. The receptionist barely made eye contact before gesturing toward the glass-walled room in the back. Inside, Denise from HR sat at the conference table, looking uncomfortable. Across from her, Robert. He didn't look smug anymore. No, this was a cornered animal trying to claw its way out. Denise cleared her throat. Evelyn, have a seat. I did. Robert leaned forward, fake concern dripping from his voice. Evelyn, I really hoped we wouldn't have to do this, but I need to bring up a very serious issue. I raised an eyebrow. He sighed dramatically. The firm has been reviewing some of your recent communications, and we have reason to believe you violated corporate confidentiality by discussing internal business matters with an external client. I blinked. Oh, this was the play. Denise glanced at me, then at Robert. Robert had brought this concern to them this morning. Of course he did. Trying to flip the narrative, trying to paint me as the problem so he could salvage his career. I tilted my head. And what specific confidential business matters are we talking about? Robert folded his hands on the table. The emails you sent regarding the Super Bowl tickets. That was an internal issue, Evelyn, and you took it directly to a client. I let out a small, disbelieving laugh. Right. So you're saying that a gift meant for me personally, which was then stolen, is now considered an internal business matter? Denise flinched at the word stolen. Robert's jaw twitched. I wouldn't call it stolen. I cut him off. Really, because the client did. In front of everyone. Silence. I leaned back. This isn't about confidentiality. This is about you getting caught. And now you're throwing a tantrum because there were consequences. Denise let out a careful breath. Robert, I understand your concern, but after reviewing the situation, I don't see any actual policy violation on Evelyn's part. His head snapped toward her. Excuse me? She glanced down at her notes. The client was the original sender of the gift. He had the right to ask about it. Evelyn did not disclose private company strategy, financials, or trade secrets. Only the status of something that was personally hers. Robert's face darkened. So that's it? You're just going to let her get away with it? Denise straightened in her chair. Robert, let's be clear. You're the one under investigation, not Evelyn. The words hit him like a slap. He started to protest, but Denise cut him off. The expense reports are being reviewed. The client has formally withdrawn their partnership with you, and now, after everything, you're trying to retaliate against an employee who was just promoted by the company. Robert had nothing left. Nothing to say. Nothing to fight with. He had lost. Denise's side had won. Standing, Denise said, Robert, I need you to leave the room. Evelyn, you're free to go. I gathered my things, not even looking at him as I stood and walked out, and by the time I reached my desk, an email had already gone out. Effective immediately, Robert Fowler is no longer with the firm. We wish him the best in his future endeavors. I read it twice just to be sure, and then, for the first time all day, I let myself smile. Robert was gone, and I had won. But the best part was that this wasn't just a victory for me. It was a warning to every arrogant, entitled boss out there. Never underestimate the people you think are beneath you, because they might be the ones who bring you down. The office was strangely quiet after Robert's abrupt departure. People were talking, of course, whispers in the hallways, stolen glances in the break room, but no one dared say anything out loud. The weight of what had just happened was too heavy. A senior partner had been taken down in front of everyone, not by another executive, not by another man in a suit, but by me. I sat at my desk rereading the company-wide email announcing Robert's termination. His name was already scrubbed from the directory, his office locked, his belongings packed by HR. It was like he had never existed. That should have been enough, but there was still one more thing to do. I pulled out my phone and called my client. He picked up on the first ring. Evelyn, he said, amusement laced in his voice. I assume you've heard the news. I have, I replied lightly. Figured I owed you a thank you. He laughed. Don't thank me. Robert did this to himself. You just handed him the rope. I smirked. I appreciate you handling things so publicly. There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his tone shifted. Tell me something, Evelyn. Are you happy staying where you are? That made me hesitate. What do you mean? Let's be honest, he said casually. You were the one doing the work. You built this account. The firm promoted you because they had to, not because they wanted to. And Robert's departure? That was your doing. I leaned back, absorbing his words. I'll be honest with you, he continued. I don't like your firm. I tolerated it because I liked working with you. I blinked. Oh, he chuckled. So let me make this simple. I want you to come work for me. My heart skipped. You've already proven yourself, he said smoothly. You're sharp, strategic, and you don't let people walk all over you. That's exactly who I want leading my business strategy team. He let the silence stretch. And I'll double whatever your firm is paying you. I nearly dropped my phone. Double. Not a raise, not a bump, double my salary. I swallowed. That's a big offer. He laughed. It is. And it's fair. I hesitated. Everything was happening so fast. I had just gotten promoted. Was I really about to walk away? Then I thought about the years of being undervalued, the ideas taken and repackaged by men like Robert, the fact that my promotion only came because a scandal forced their hand. Did I owe them anything? No. A slow smile spread across my face. Send me the offer, I said. I think I'm ready for something better. By the next morning, my resignation letter was printed and signed. I walked through the office with my head held high, ignoring the surprised whispers and not-so-subtle looks of admiration. Denise from HR looked genuinely shocked when I handed her the letter. You're leaving? She asked. I nodded. Got an offer I couldn't refuse. She glanced at the salary and let out a low whistle. Damn, I can't blame you. As I packed my things, coworkers stopped by, some stunned, others not surprised at all. Then, just as I was about to leave, I got one last message from an unknown number. Robert Fowler. Enjoy your little victory. You just got lucky. I stared at it for a moment before replying. Luck had nothing to do with it. And with that, I walked out for the last time. A year later, I stood in my corner office overlooking the city skyline. My name was on the door, my team respected me, my salary was more than I'd ever imagined, and best of all, I was finally working for people who valued me. An industry alert popped up on my phone. Former executive Robert Fowler files lawsuit against former firm, claims wrongful termination. I laughed. He was still fighting a battle he had already lost. I leaned back in my chair. Robert had spent years stealing credit, stepping on people, taking what wasn't his, and in the end, he lost everything. I, on the other hand, gained everything, and that was the sweetest revenge of all.